I love these popularity polls. And just as a reminder, these are kind of interesting because they used to do this just, let's say, once a year, once every couple of years, something like that. But with the addition of Harry and Meghan, we see a lot more movement on these. And so it says here from YouGov, which is the most consistent, is that the Prince and Princess of Wales remain the most positively viewed members of the royal family. And this should not be a surprise. Catherine and William are very, very popular. And that is incredibly important because, unfortunately, and we'll actually see this in an interesting US poll, the whole situation with Charles and Diana still impacts his popularity today. 30, 40 years later. It's sort of insane, the longevity of that situation and how that continues to impact Charles, I think, in so many ways. And I think it goes to show for royals, it's always very, 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 very important to remember actions have consequences. And your PR, once it gets to a certain level, it may never fully recover. And I think that's sort of the case with King Charles. So, obviously, with the death of Queen Elizabeth, that was huge. And the Prince and Princess of Wales both remain very popular, with Princess Anne not far behind. King Charles is seen positively by 6 in 10 Britons, but negatively by a third. And guys, again, that third is probably pretty much comprised of those who hate what happened with Princess Diana. That was decades ago now. She has been actually deceased for over, I think it's closing in on 30 years now. It's sort of insane how long that still has an impact. And the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh are seen more positively, as they should be. But I just do enjoy taking a look at these and seeing where things are. So Catherine and William are both tied here at 74% positive, which is very, very good for them. And both of them, I would say, have a pretty good don't know score. So a don't know is actually an interesting metric because you actually want that in the case of Beatrice and Eugenie. It's actually kind of good that it's sort of big because that means people haven't settled on a perception of you yet. So you can push it one way or another. So you're just kind of like, well, I don't know type of thing. So Catherine and Williams is both low, although William is not as liked as his wife. So there's a bigger negative perception of him, and sort of how they classify it is fairly negative and very negative, and they put those together, and that's how they come up with that number. So very good thing for Catherine and William. Princess Anne, of course, showing that as a royal lady that you can, and as a spare, if you work really, really hard, people do tend to like you. That's very, very important. And I think Anne is a reflection of that hardworking royal spirit there, and very much reminiscent of her mother. Her I don't know score is sort of in the middle there. King Charles still has a net positive 25 with 59% liking, but he has a high unfavorable. So again, you want something more here and less over there, because that means you have to actually push somebody from one side to the other. And then we have Sophie, who is at 55, and Edward at 53, which both have sort of a big I don't know column as well. So Queen Camilla is here at 45 and then 43. Again, that whole Diana situation, guys, really impacting still the view of her right now. We also have Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who are very similar here in the markup with 41 and 40% respectively, and then dislike 24 and 25%, which I don't even understand why. Why does anybody dislike them? I don't know. There's not really much, I feel like, to dislike about Beatrice and Eugenie, but some apparently do. And then you have Prince Harry here is negative 31. So obviously, huge differential here, wildly unliked. Meghan the same, so 61 versus 68%, and then Andrew 89. Now, what's interesting is if you get to an American poll, it actually goes a bit differently. And I do think this is important to point out because sometimes people think, oh, it's just a perception of the royals in the UK that matters. And while that is true, I think it's abroad that also has an impact here. And what I also find very interesting is that when it comes to, I watched a video, and this was done by Vogue many, many years ago, or Vanity Fair, I can't remember which one, asking Britons which royal they prefer. It was a toss-up between the Queen and Harry. There was a lot of love for Harry. And you see this a bit in the American side as well. So they ask Americans, who is your favorite royal? Princess Diana. She really connected to the American citizen. What can I tell you? I think this is a little odd. She has been gone a very long time now. So, like, I sort of get it, and then I sort of kinda don't, but it goes to show the impact that she had globally and how she really was the global figure for the family. And I don't think necessarily anybody right now is totally fulfilling that role, but Catherine and William are definitely my strongest contenders there. That's why, like, those foreign trips are so important because, yes, you need to make people at home happy, but it's what's going on abroad that also has a greater impact as well. So, two is Queen. So, dominating the popularity contest are two people who are deceased. So, it's not totally great. And then we go on. Next is Prince William. And next, surprisingly, is Harry. And I think it really is that Diana factor that boosts up his popularity there. And it comes from a general American misunderstanding of some of the royal roles. And again, Harry and Meghan sort of thrive on that. And that's why I think it's so important to sort of kind of call them the cosplay royals, make this separation really, really clear because it's so very important for people to know that there is a difference because people do get confused, I think. So this is what we're looking at. And then next is Catherine, which is sort of obvious. And I'm surprised she's not higher, but we do have the impact of her being away from the spotlight. And I do think having Catherine, and I totally understand why, not saying that she should have been out there as she was going through treatments, but really having the most popular or most liked member of the royal family with a low level of dislike out of the public spotlight really does have an impact. And I sort of want to make the case for why that's important here, but we'll keep going. Then next, you got Princess Anne, which I'm so excited about. You should all recognize Anne more. Next, for some reason, is Meghan Markle. Still confused why. King Charles, very, very far down here. Obviously, again, Diana and Charles impacting that. Queen Camilla, the very almost at the very bottom, and then at the very bottom is Andrew. So I think Camilla is definitely making inroads in the UK, but abroad, not quite so much. And so at the end of the day, why does sort of all this matter? Because yes, the popularity goes up and down. And you'll notice here the differences and the different levels. Like remained pretty consistent, went down a little bit for Catherine and William with all the chaos with Harry and Meghan and everything. Harry and Meghan definitely had, guys, a negative impact in a lot of ways. But you do have like this great increase for Anne, and you have sort of this long tenure here. These are just because they only did the polls every couple of years instead of like every other month. So we have Charles, who's trending, I would say, fairly well. Queen Camilla's trending fairly well. Edward's definitely trending up. Prince Harry down, way down. Meghan Markle way down as well. Seems like they've lost even a little bit of popularity since the last time they've done this poll, or at least Meghan has. Harry has ticked upwards very slightly. Andrew, of course, bottom of the barrel. Bottom of the barrel. But again, why does all this matter at the end of the day? Because a popularity poll is just a small snippet into the life of the British royal family. I think, though, what I guess come out and are a bit concerned about is just what does this mean for the future? As I think, and people on the ground in the UK can tell me whether or not, the anti-monarchy movement, not my king movement and everything, they are getting very vocal at events, which I think is both annoying people, but I think they're in a way a little bit gaining some steam. And it's challenging because you don't quite know where things are going to go in the future. Obviously, you could not anticipate 2024. But I always think in this instance, the British royals should rest on sort of this idea that they always need to be aware and on guard. Because I watch some people on social media and they're very much of like, oh, the Brits are going to be fine. No worries, the Brits are going to be fine. They're going to be fine every time. It'll be perfectly okay. And don't worry, Harry and Meghan, they're going to have no impact. But we see this in the polls that they have. And all this chaos is going to potentially undermine them. And it's sort of interesting. I was looking a bit at the details of the poll because they go down and they talk about here how, like, when it comes to party lines, that the British royals are definitely well supported by the Conservatives, a bit more by Reform, but Labour, it's very low. And there's a Labour government in power right now. So there could be even an instance, because the British royals don't have that much leeway in certain ways of what they can do, that a savvy politician could undermine them in many ways. So even though I think the monarchy is going from strength to strength, and a lot, it's always good, I think, to be on guard, to never rest on your laurels and think everything's going to be fine, because it's always been fine. I think the whole impact with Harry and Meghan has shown that these little bad actors can have a more detrimental impact than you might think. And so it's best to always be on guard and aware of what the future holds and where things are supposed to go. Because Charles, I don't know where his health resides, because obviously we know he's still going through his cancer treatments and everything. And we don't know what is expected in terms of his life. But with him being ill, that impacts travel and different things. And so he's doing what he can, but he's definitely not as a uniting figure, you could say, or as beloved as his son. And that's got to be a bit of a challenge. So I always, I'm interested to see where this will all go. And hopefully it goes in a very positive direction. But I also do have my concerns as well. So we shall see where this all goes. But it's always fun to see the latest popularity polls, see Catherine and William consistently being the top royals. And I should add too, it won't be too long before Prince George starts getting on there. Because what's always fun that happens in the royal space is that, sort of like Hollywood, there's new faces that pop up. We sort of know the generational guidelines, you could say. Once George becomes of age, and then we have Charlotte and Louis, so much of the media focus will go to them, and Harry and Meghan and Andrew will sort of fall into obscurity. That's a hope, right? That's a hope. So hopefully, I mean, we're really resting a lot on the younger generation here, and I'm anxious to see too how the royals deal with, especially William, the very small cadre of working royals that they have now, because we just still have the Duke of Kent, who is still going, but he should retire soon. We have the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, and they are in their mid to late 70s now. So it's time to sort of allow the old guard to retire. And then who do you bring up, or you just continue with the team that you have? That, I think, is a big question that the British royals have sort of going forwards.